Reading. All right, welcome back. The last session, what we have seen is the way we could tweak the response object by setting or overriding the content type, which is a MIME setting, and also the encoding in the doGet method. We have given an exercise to the students or readers to practice the same for doPost. And also we have requested for an optimization on making a reusable method so that it gets applicable on both doGet and doPost, and also for any other overridden implementation for the HTTP methods. In this video, we're gonna take a look at that. So let me share my screen, go to the Eclipse. Right, so this is what we have looked at it. doGet, we have actually overridden the content. In doPost, so basically in doPost, we were actually redirecting to the request dispatcher. And from within the request dispatcher, we are actually taking a control resource on the JSP, Servlet JSP that handles this UTF-8 content, right? Let's first run it and see what is the current state that it is in. And then we can talk about the other actual code. Let me close this. Clean the workspace directory. Clean it. Refresh. Build it. Then I would start. Run as a run server. Here, if you don't want to keep selecting the server, you can tick this. Always use the server when running the project. So going forward, you will not be prompted for this. It would be default selected. But I would prefer selecting this because it's yet another troubleshooting mechanism for us to understand, or rather a stopgap measure, especially when you are troubleshooting. Otherwise, what might happen is this is one of the steps would be taken by default, taken for granted. Sometimes it could be a potential cause of concern. So that's why I do not personally recommend. But if you want, you are free to choose this. Say next, and then choose this. Yep, it is running. Go back. All right. State. This is done. Let's go here. Right. So this is the get method. 9:50 a.m. Let's go to this again. Index. This is the index, and this is the JSP. Third order. This is HTML page. This is the JSP test page. This is the servlet get. This is where we get the servlet response. So let me start it. Okay, I get this. Right. So if we were to, okay, we will begin the same response what we have in the doPost, we get it. So we redirect to here we have present server date and time. We redirect this to a JSP server, JSP, where we retrieve as a message from the server, we get this. That's what potentially it is for get, right? doPost, we are redirecting to a server, JSP, where it handles the response. Just to make it look better, we would add a Unicode content here as well. Message plus equals. Obviously, I'll add a line break so that comes the next line. UTF-8 content. I will close the bracing. What can I do? Here you go. Google Translator. I actually typed it. Use this, choose the language Tamil, and type it. If you know the word, Vanakkam, I want to put it. So let me copy and paste. So this is again yet another Tamil word. Vanakkam means greeting, right? We use that. If you you don't know the word to type it, you want to translate it, there is a Google Translator. You could put it English to Tamil. That's what I have chosen. You see here. Greetings. See, வாழ்த்துக்கள். Okay, vanakkam is also say greeting. Welcome. We say welcome, right? Welcome. This Varaverpu. This again literal word that takes it. You could type it here. Anything, right? Say greeting. Greetings is வாழ்த்துக்கள். Greeting. Any greeting you say vanakkam. You get it, right? So we could potentially use this tool to copy and paste. Let's say good morning. So say Kalai Vanakkam. You can use whatever phrase that you want to translate and put it, copy paste. In case you don't have the right keyboard installed in your machine and you're not able to type it in the right thing, you use the Google Translator to get you the potentially matching content. I wouldn't really see 100% has got a match. They are also evolving it with the people's correction on their AI and the language, the Google Labs. They have been evolving it continuously over a time, over a period of time, right? So we put this as well. Let's run this. Server, stop. I make a content, right? So let me clean this, right? I would do the same thing, refresh, build, then say run as run on server. Yes. Next. So automatically that will open up a browser page. Thank you. I come here. This is on the post. Get doesn't have any difference. Only timing will change. I would do that. Same old output what we have got. Should null what we said in the last video. Default encoding, recent encoding, right? Let's come here. Reload that page, servlet. Click HTML form. Now you see Vanakkam. The same content what we copied, which is in Tamil, using with the help of UTF-8, we get this, right? Let's see how exactly the code is handled. In the doPost servlet method, I do not make any settings at all. Though it was set earlier, I have commented it out. Then how does this magic happen? How do I get the response in the right format? It's called rendering, right? When we say rendering, on the server side, the data is getting actually delivered to the client in the right format, in the right character set and encoding. The way in which each character is represented or painted is called rendering. That's a technical term. Use that and keep it ready. Okay. Let's do the license check. Yeah. Okay. So this is what the Servlet JSP lifecycle as well. We'll take a look subsequently in this session, right? So server JSP is on the server side component, how it takes, right? Let's come back to that subsequently. So here we get it, the content. Why? Because in the servlet, I do not have anything, but on the JSP, I have the content type HTML and the page encoding set. You could see that as well here. Take this, the response 200 OK. And when the response comes, you see here, char set UTF-8 text HTML, because that is set in the JSP. Remember, JSP is again a server-side component. That's what I'm going to explain it here. Client server, client makes a request, passes an input. It could be a tablet, desktop, browser, or a mobile, right? Tablet or a mobile, any handheld devices. Passes an input, server does a processing or computation, and it gets the response. Result you pass, request input you pass, output or result you get it back, right? That's what you get it, and the client displays it. If it is a JSP, JSP is again a server-side component, right? That is responsible to process the snippets, whatever we have. That's what the best example we have seen here, right? In the server's HTML, if you pass a snippet, it's called a snippet. HTML doesn't know how to handle that. Let's say index.html. It doesn't know how to handle this. It displays as what it is. Whereas if it is a JSP, the difference between JSP and servlet is the same, right? Index.html, we have this. Index.jsp. Test.jsp. Yeah, we have the same snippet. But when it comes as a JSP, this gets processed and we get the current time, new Java util date. In the server side, it goes and hits. It runs on the server, does some processing, get the actual data, and that is being embedded in the place where it is actually invoked. That is why you see the output, present server date and time, Saturday, December 16, 9 o'clock when we hit it. Let me rerun it, 9:57, the current time. Whenever you invoke, it goes directly, hits the server, does some processing, computes it. That is why JSP is known for delivering a static plus dynamic data. Static is all from the template what we have here. Look at this. Complete snippet is a static content except this piece, which is dynamic JSP expression, we call it as, which inside which whatever we have that gets computed or processed from the server side. Hence, JSP is a server side component, right? That's why we get that. Now let's see, I remove this. Content type is nothing but the same we have it. Response in the doGet method, what we did. Response.set content type. Whatever you do here, the same API is getting invoked. I leave that as an exercise for now, how JSP is converting to a servlet. If any of you still needed my help, I'll be happy to record another session and video to help you see that effect in reality, how JSP gets converted to a servlet. Otherwise, until then, you take it as an exercise to find it out by yourself, right? That'd be an interesting exercise, trust me. Couple of decades decade back before when I started my journey, I did all that exercise. That was my fundamental foundation of my learning journey, right? With the Java and web programming of Java EE, it was J2EE by then, right? Okay. So let me now remove this, right? Nothing else I'm doing it, right? And see what happens. I would once again clean this because I'm doing a content change. Because JSP is again, there will be a stickiness, it will be present. I would stop the server, clean the Tomcat directory. You always better do this cleanup once, right? Say refresh, build the project, clean the project once. It's a bit of an overhead, trust me, when we move to Spring, all that can be automatically taken care. Auto deployment, Spring DevTools take care of that. Choose this, finish. All right. So now let's wait for a minute. Yeah, the HTML page comes by default. If you want to make a tweak, that as well, you could try. Have a web.xml, so make a index.jsp as a default welcome file. That way HTML doesn't come, JSP comes. Okay, let's go back here. We have to take a look at the JSP. Right now you see the content is gone. The magic is gone, right? The absence, magic is absent here. Let's take a look what is happening. Right? What is the content type we have? ISO 88591. Why? In the servlet, we do not have any settings. Just pay attention. Whenever we say client servlet and JSP, we have two different entities. Servlet in the first entity on the server side takes care of processing your request. JSP is the last entity. It's also on the server side. We have just now seen, right? But it takes more ownership towards a presentation, static content, the HTML snippet, what we have seen. So generally you would see people saying JSP as a client side. Most often people might inadvertently spell it that way, but that's not right. But what they really intend to say it is close to the client because it has more static content, the HTML snippet, and a bit of the snippet that gets dynamically executed and processed in the server side. So JSP is certainly a server-side component. It has got two phases. One is the translation phase, the compilation, where the snippet in the JSP gets converted into a servlet. Legally, a JSP is a servlet, right? And then the same doGet, doPost, what we have, gets equally converted, executed, and the response is delivered back to the client. Or in more refined term, the response is rendered to the client. Right now, when we have this scenario, we're talking about servlet and JSP, right? From servlet, we have seen it earlier. The servlet can directly take the responsibility to deliver the content to the client. In what way? It could take the response.getWriter, where it holds a writer object reference, which is nothing but a print writer. And whatever the content it wants to prepare, it prepares it and stuffs it into the writer object. When we say writer or out as an object reference, out.write. Why we say out? Because it's an output. So we make a meaningful object reference as out. You could also call it as writer or whatever you want. But as a best practice, we call it as out. So it's an output object. Response.getWriter, I get it as an out. And out.write. right? Out.write, we stuff the object what we want to print it. That way, a servlet was taking the responsibility of writing the response back to the client directly. That is what we have seen it in the doGet method, right? We have seen it in the doGet method. Yeah. In the doGet, we take a out response.get writer. Whatever the response that we are preparing, we are actually stuffing it. Out.write of message and out.flush. Flush is something like it's potentially the way you flush it out. Whatever it has got an efficiency, right? There is a buffering happens. Whatever the contents, the data it's left out in the stream, you push it, you flush it out. So nothing is retained. The complete contents what you have, everything is flushed out from the server to the client. That's why we invoke a flush method. That's one way. But in this post method, what do we have? We do not directly take the responsibility. We actually hand it over to the Servlet JSP, and we use a request dispatcher component, which you have seen in the early videos as well. Servlet hands it over to a JSP, and the JSP indeed delivers the content back to the client. So Servlet and JSP, that's what two different entities we look at it. So on the JSP, we have the content. We have from the Servlet, we do not modify any settings. But in the JSP, we used to make the settings on the header, top portion of it. Say page encoding is equal to UTF-8. And we also had other setting called character set, right? The basic on the top of it, we had these content type, text HTML, both of them we handled it. Now we have actually removed that and we try to render the content and we have got UTF. The ISO 88591 is a default setting. Let me go here, make the request. It is a get method, sorry. We need to make a post method, right? Let me make a post request. You see here, ISO 88591 is what I get. You also see that, right? The response, difference in the response, right? When I make a get request, I did not really stuff in any HTML snippet. If you want, I can do that as well, right? If you want to do it, we could do that, right? If you make a command, this is a get request, what we hit by default. It's just this, that's all. But though text/HTML, we did it. So it is automatically rendered in the right way to the browser when it goes. But now in the post, I hand it to the JSP. In the JSP, I have the snippet, doc type, HTML, etc. That's what you see it here. Yeah, we see it here. All right. So the complete HTML snippet with the response, here it is question mark, question mark, question mark, because the encoding is missing. So what would we do? This is another scenario what we need to look at, right? We have seen two different phases, Servlet and JSP. Servlet, both are on the server side, right? You can also take a look at it. Let's see here. This is a web container. We have Catalina and JSP Servlet engine, right? We make a request, we click on it, a JSP, the context root, and we click, request comes to the container. What does it do? It picks up a JSP, number 2, right? JSP, actually, sorry, here it is. We make a request, a JSP Jasper engine converts that into a servlet. That's what it goes to the Catalina servlet engine. The servlet indeed takes a response. It goes to the runtime JRE. It executes a piece of Java code, and the response is finally given back to the. This is where the response gets generated, comes to the servlet, comes to the client as an end response, right? This is what's the life cycle. HTTP, this is a URL semantics, right? The protocol and the localhost is a local machine. This is a colon is a separator. 88 is the port number. We do that. The unique location within the server. JSP demo is the context root. That's an earlier example. Here we use JSP Servlet test, right? Whatever the name of the project, you look at it. Hello World JSP is a resource, actual resource we look for inside the web app. So this is what the life cycle of it. A JSP gets really legally converted into a servlet, and that servlet indeed executes a Java code with the help of Java runtime environment, right? And that's what indeed responsible for delivering the actual end response to the client. So that's it. We have two different entities to look at it, right? Servlet and JSP. Servlet being the first leg or first entity, first element in the server side to handle the responsibility, the request, process the request. It can potentially take the ownership of setting the response, be it the content type or the encoding, without really trusting or assuming that any other subsequent elements in the chain of the server side might potentially handle it. It may or it may not. Say what happened in this case. In the servlet, we assume that the subsequent element, probably I know that JSP is coming to picture, a JSP might handle it. By thinking in these lines, in the servlet side, we have not handled it. But on the JSP side, for some reason, we have removed the encoding setting. What had happened? It has resulted in the, see, in the servlet, we did not handle it. In the JSP as well, we removed it for some reason. It resulted in the content not being displayed correctly. We also have a proof that ISO 8859 is a default encoding when there is no encoding set. That's a potential. The actual proof that we have in front of our eyes. So instead of that, what we could do in the servlet itself, we can take charge of the same thing. What I can do, I go here and copy paste the same lines in do get. All right. I get this. What I'm doing now, I'm same 4 lines, one for content type, other for encoding. I first see what is available and then set it as what I want, then ascertaining that the latest setting has taken place. I print it once again in the system out printer. Same way for the content encoding as well, default encoding I get. I override the encoding with what I want and then print. Nothing else, right? Then I'm setting it. All right. And I'm passing it back to the JSP, right? Actual request is we can handle it, right? Let's say print writer, this method, right? This is an example. Like do get, do post as well can handle that response directly. Let's go here. Stop the server. All right. I would clean the project. Yes. I would refresh, build the project, run as server, right? Oh, my bad. I have to comment this. We don't need to handle this. Step by step. Like get post as well, we could do. I'm just doing it just for the sake of it, right? Now I did run. I say run. Choose the server. I run it, run on server. Come back here. Get method comes. Obviously, I go to the console. I clean it. Maximize it. Go to the post method. Click on the form. Now I see it, right? What is that? Now servlet directly handles. Take a look at the response. UTF-8, right? Let me hit here the post method, send request. You see? I think it is still sending. No, it is still not taking effect. I think it is running. Let's wait. Or you can go to Postman, say post, hello world servlet. I make it. Server not started. No. Legal state. Why? I think I have not cleaned it. Let me stop it. Sorry about that. Last time when I did this, after I commented it, I did not clean the project. So it is thinking that response redirect happens. Let me clean it and build it. All right. And then run it once again. Run on server, choose the server, finish it. All right. So let's go back here, go to the post method, but it came once. Yeah, I get the content Vanakkam, the welcome greeting, UTF-8. Let me hit this post request once again. Here you go. UTF-8. You see now the HTML snippet did not come. Earlier response we have seen, had it been through JSP, we had the HTML, etc., all these ceremonies, but we don't get it here. You see, the doPost invoked, we get that as well. I would hit it from JSP Postman as well. You see the content, right? Preview, I get it. Pretty raw. I just get this, not HTML snippet, which was set from JSP. I don't route it through JSP, right? Which we know for sure, no difference between get and post. Now I want to comment this out. Let me show that. What am I doing? As always, I make the settings. I'll stop the server, clean it. Let's see what are the contents that we have. From within the servlet, I set my encoding and the content type, and I don't take the responsibility of delegating the response back to the client. Instead, I hand it over to the JSP. In the JSP, I don't make any settings at all. Forget about this character set UTF-8, but here on the main thing, content type, I don't set it, right? So what do I get it? I will be redirecting to the JSP, and let's see how does it set. JSP is also a server side, not to forget that. Build the project, run as, run on server, choose a server, say finish. Okay, now it has come. I would close it. Get always works. I make it post. Now you see servlet response.jsp, and you get little more additional content in the response message from the server. You see here what it has come. Now UTF-8. Why? And we get this content as well. No difference at all. Let me send the request once again. Post. You see here, UTF-8 is done, but this has come through JSP now. That's a technical difference, right? We add a snippet from within the snippet. But logically, there is no difference in the response. Yes, of course, there's some additional lines you see, servlet respond to JSP and all, right? As how it was embedded in the JSP, I get it. So this is how we route it. Now, one more interesting question, right? We have seen servlet handling the responsibility, ownership of setting the content type and the encoding type. Not really assuming, right, being lazy that somebody else in the chain on the server side would share the responsibility. Instead, I take 100% responsibility. I set everything and give it to you, right? Now assume, what if JSP also sets it? We have both of them taking the responsibility, right? So what I'm going to do, my Eclipse, go to the servlet, I bring it back. So what do we have the setup? I have my servlet, I have my JSP. Both servlet is also setting the content type and encoding. JSP is also setting the content type and encoding. Think for a moment, will it have any effect? Or anything going wrong? Anything we are doing legally wrong? Will the compiler or container scold it? Hey, already you have set it. No, because JSP is legally a servlet. So what happens is, once a servlet actually sets it, hands it over this JSP, JSP indeed is again calling the same method, response.set content type, passing the same object, same value, text/HTML. Likewise, response.set encoding within brackets, saying passing argument as UTF-8, meaning it is overriding the same parameters of the response with the same value. That does not really take any additional benefit or no impact, but also no harm. Both of them are sharing the same responsibility, redoing the same, doesn't matter, it's well and good. In case one entity has forgotten, other entity will do. What the JSP thought, probably, what if it was not set in the servlet? Let me ensure it. Let me reinforce it by setting the same parameters, right? It's well and good. The good things can be done by anybody and everybody. So that way, it doesn't have any negative impacts. Rather, it is redoing the same thing and does not really do any harm. So let's run this setup now. I would stop the server, clean it, clean the project. Go to build automatically. Clean the project. Is start and stop. Go to the project, refresh it, and then build it. Then start it. Run on server. Yep. Let me run here. Already the page has come. Go back. No big difference. You get the same response. No big difference from the previous responses. Obviously, you get some content here, what we have set. All right. Plus, we go back, same thing. Here also it is getting, only timing is different, right? No big difference. We are enforcing the same settings in both of them, right? Both the HTML, servlet and JSP. Now let's take a look at optimization. If you look at it, what are we doing potentially? We don't take the responsibility of delivering the content response from the servlet to JSP, a servlet to the end client. Rather, we give it from servlet to JSP, and JSP indeed handles it, right? There are 8 lines typically reused or duplicated across both the methods. Do we really need it? What if I want to have, instead of UTF-8, I want to put UTF-16, or again ISO 88591, or some different encoding I want to apply? Now I need to set it to 2 different methods, because 2 HTTP operations, we have 2 different methods, and 2 places I need to change. Let's take, this is where I want to show you. These are all the HTTP methods, what we have potentially. Get, head, post, put, delete, connect, options, trace, and patch. There are 9 different HTTP verbs equivalent corresponding. There are different HTTP methods as well. Let's assume this is HTTP servlet. Let's go to that class. It's a generic, it's an abstract servlet class, right? Let's take a look. How many methods we have? Do get, do head, do post, do put, do get and post we have seen, right? We also have a corresponding method for each of the HTTP verb. Head, put, post, delete, options, trace, right? Though there are 9 methods, here in the servlet, they have actually take it for, of course, they have other methods as well. Do trace, options, all that, right? Head, delete, all that we have, right? So what if I want to have a corresponding method for each of them? And if I duplicate the same contents, tomorrow I want to make a change in one method. For example, everywhere I want to change, I need to do it in every other method. That's the duplication. In order to avoid that, in Eclipse, any other IDE, we have a beautiful help tip, right? You right click on it, say refactor, extract method. Automatically it extract the line of method, and it says ask for a method. It says change the response settings. Right? See the intelligence. It assumes, certainly it infers that the line of code selected and planned to be extracted as a separate method operates on an object called response, which is of type HTTP response, right? It automatically adds that as a parameter. It acts access modifier private because we don't want this to be accessed from outside of the class. I'm happy to be leaving it as a private method, meaning it can be used only from within the class. And HTTP servlet response, thank you Eclipse, we have been intelligent enough to deduce that as a mandatory parameter, it should be paused, change response settings and HTTP servlet response, right? Declare thrown runtime exceptions. I don't think we need it because just the settings we do. If at all, if it is required, we can modify it later. Say preview. This is how my method is going